Good evening, everyone, and welcome to the Town Board regular meeting for Tuesday, July 23rd, 2019. Please rise and join me for the Pledge of Allegiance.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, republic for which it stands, a nation, God, justice for all.
Councilmember Meyer, Councilmember Shaw, Councilmember Wiltshire,
Present.
Councilmember Feldman,
Present.
and Supervisor Lippenberg.
Ram. Okay, so we have a lengthy agenda this evening, and thank you all for joining us at home. Tonight we are reopening several public hearings, the first three of which will be opened concurrently and are related to the referenda which we have been contemplating, which consider changing the elected positions of Superintendent of Highways, Receiver of Taxes, and Town Clerk to appointive positions. We've gotten some mixed feedback on this concept since we opened the public hearings earlier this year. And even before that, at our small group meetings in the community, we were met with some skepticism and also some positive feedback. Two questions that routinely were asked. Why are these positions being considered and why now? In response to the first, why these positions, the answer is simply, we are small. Between the town general functions and the unincorporated town, we only employ around 60 people. Every time we have a changeover in staff, we slow down and consider how to move forward. Do we fill the same job? Do we make a full-time job part-time? Or vice versa? Is this a job we can share with one of our villages or have performed through an IMA? We are treating these positions the same as we do for every other role in the town so that we can remain agile and address the immediate needs of our residents rather than submitting a rollover budget and never questioning staffing level, revisiting programmatic needs, or reallocating funds to areas of need. And that brings me to the second question, why now? This year, we are in a position to look at 2 of 3 positions because of a recent or pending retirement, particularly in jobs at the department head level, which tend to command higher salaries than our unionized staff. We are always on the lookout for the flexibility to share responsibilities and allocate resources more effectively. The fact that 2 of these 3 positions, the highway superintendent and the town clerk, have been or will soon be vacated by long-term incumbents underscores the importance of the process we usually take when considering vacancies. We are looking at this now because the opportunity has presented itself, and we think it's worth discussing. The town board is suggesting a community-wide vote. As part of these local laws, it goes to a public vote. If you think this is a terrible idea, I urge you to come to the polls in November and tell us so. If you think it's a fantastic idea, I urge you to come to the polls and tell us so. If you are still on the fence, I urge you to learn more. And we still have information up at projectforward.com on our Town of Ossining website, as well as I want to remind you that it's still your vote. We want to hear more from you, and even though we will be closing the public hearing soon on these referenda within the next few meetings, we will continue to seek your feedback and to communicate with the community about this in the coming months leading up to the November election. We are working with the League of Women Voters to see if we can set up a forum in September, which would have pros and cons, and we hope to share more details on this in the near future. With that, I welcome anybody here to speak on local law number 4, abolishing the office of elective town superintendent of highways and creating the office of appointed town superintendent of highways subject to a mandatory referendum. Local law number 5 of 2019, abolishing the office of elective town receiver of taxes and creating the office of appointed town receiver of taxes subject to a mandatory referendum. Or local law number 6 of 2019, abolishing the office of elective town clerk and creating the office of appointed town clerk subject to a mandatory referendum. Is there anybody here to address the board at this public hearing? Is there anybody on the board who would like to say anything before we make a decision about what we're doing next.
Well, we're gonna keep it open.
Yeah, I
So,
was going to
okay.
speak to that.
Okay.
So the way the statute reads, the vote, the mandatory referendum for each of the 3 local laws can't be held less than 60 days after the local law being adopted. So the board basically has to adopt the local laws more than 60 days before the November 5th, 2019 general election, which is the way the local law is drafted when the mandatory referendum will be held. So the way your schedule is looking for August, it seems that you can continue it to August 6th because I believe you're doing a joint work session and meeting that night. And then by the end of August, you will have to close the public hearing and vote on the local law in order to be within the more than 60 days time frame to have it be on the November 5th election. And just to remind the board, this has been open for quite a while.
think
Since
since
I'd say
February?
February.
Since February, this has been open.
I'd like to at least leave it open.
Well, again, we have a timetable, and that was what we just,
That's what I'm saying,
we
yeah.
only have be able to allow it open till the next
I
meeting.
get that.
Okay, okay,
Well,
okay.
to the end of August.
You said we need to close the public
Well,
hearing.
I guess your 2 options are you can close the public hearing and vote the same night,
Oh, I see, or close the public
close the
hearing.
public hearing and then vote at the next meeting. Are basically your
So
options.
we could leave it open one more meeting and close it and then vote the same night, or we could close it at the next meeting and vote following meeting.
Right. But if a few more people engage lately, so I think have an opportunity, probably
You know,
better thing.
Okay,
we
so then we'll leave it open till we'll keep it open for August 6th.
we should leave it open until the next meeting and close it. This thing has been going on for almost a year, and if you haven't had nobody worried about it up until now,
Mhm.
why are you going to worry about who wants to come now?
I mean, I just think,
That's-
again,
that's-
because,
yes.
okay. Well, we will, certainly we are going to keep it open until the next meeting, and then at the next meeting, we can make a decision if we want to vote or not. Okay?
Right, and just encourage people to, if they do want to make comments, now is the time to do it. But as the supervisor said, the big caveat here is that these local laws do not go into effect unless they are approved by a majority of the voters at the November election.
Right, so this- Doesn't preclude people from being involved. They still are going to have an opportunity to vote. They're going to have an opportunity to learn more between when we close the public hearing, when we vote to put it to a public referendum, and when the public gets to vote.
I'm aware.
Okay. All right. So with that, we will take
motion
a
to
motion
adjourn the public hearing to be continued at your August 6th meeting.
Do I have a motion?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Right. So moving right along. Next up, we have local law number 7 of 2019, amendments to chapter 74 of the town code entitled Dogs to regulate registration for and use of the town's dog parks. Based on some of the feedback we received, we had made some changes to the draft local law. Council Tomadano would you'd like to elaborate, and also the other thing I wanted to just show everybody is that we just got this sign made that we will be placing at our 2 dog parks, Dog Park, Dog Run, at Ryder Park and at Cedar Lane Park, to encourage public feedback in the public hearing process, as part of the public hearing process. Got it, Tom? Council? Did you want to
Yeah.
take us through this in the public
So
hearing?
my understanding was that there had been some feedback that there shouldn't be an extra fee for registration for residents of the unincorporated town, the village of Ossining, and those residents in the village of Briarcliff Manor who are in the town of Ossining. So I tried to revise the local law to incorporate those concepts. This is obviously preliminary, and we're still waiting to get feedback from a lot of the interested groups that had been reached out to. regarding this local law. Specifically, I would say the Village of Ossining and the Village of Briarcliff Manor, because I think logistically, in order for this to work, I want to clarify, we have received comments from the Village of Ossining, but one of the items that we would want to know is if they would be willing to go on to the same licensing schedule that the town is on, because the way this is intended to work is that the license will run on June 1st of each year until May 30th of the following year. And during that time period, there will be a different colored tag that will be given to each dog during the registration period, so that it will be easily identifiable whether that dog has been properly registered with the town. And so if there's different scheduling for when the licenses have to be issued, it could be problematic for a logistical standpoint, because everyone won't have their tags at the same point in time. So that's a logistical issue that I think we still need to discuss and figure out how best to work out. So the draft that I provided, and certainly open to comment from the board or the public, just tried to kind of incorporate those concepts that first starting in 7410B, originally it was going to be a license, a fee for both the license and then for the registration. So now it just says there will be an annual fee for the license that will be set forth by resolution of the town board. And then C was moved up and eliminates the concept of fees for registration, but it still applies for a prorated payment of the license. So if people get a dog or don't realize they're supposed to register or get their dog licensed and they come in August or something, the way this reads now, they wouldn't have to pay the entire fee for the year, but then the following year they would be required to get their license by June 1st and pay the entire fee, and then after that stay licensed by June 1st of every year. And it says there will not be a separate fee for registering dogs in the unincorporated town, and will be an added benefit for licensing the dog. And the reason why it only references the incorporated town here is because this is the section that's only dealing with licensing and licensing fees, and the town can only require other unincorporated town residents to license their dogs. Each local municipality has those types of regulations based upon state law. So both the villages also have similar legislation, as do other municipalities.
Unless we found out a village adopts a resolution to allow town to be administrator of dog licenses, which is allowed by state law.
Correct.
So we could, that could be a conversation to make it easier, or that's something that either village isn't.
Has anybody from the village chimed in on that? Whether they're willing to do that?
Not yet. We believe that there might have been a belief that we believe that there might have been a belief that that was something that happened many years ago, and then but wasn't codified.
Okay.
So we're still trying to sort through some of that to identify, where that was or wasn't communicated.
And then in the proposed Article 3, 7419, that deals specifically with registration for dogs. And it contemplates that if you're within the unincorporated town, the dog will be registered when they obtain their annual license from the town clerk as required by Article 2, which was licensing. And then there's a new Section D that is related to the issues that I raised before, and it deals with dogs within the villages of the town of Ossining. So the town will provide metal dog tags of the appropriate color to the Village of Ossining clerk, which for the time being, due to an IMA, is the town clerk. So that's pretty easy to handle as long as they're on the same licensing schedule. And the Village of Briarcliff clerk. Those dogs in the Village of Ossining and the portion of Village of Briarcliff Manor located within the town of Ossining will be registered for the dog parks and obtain their registration tag when they obtain their licenses from the respective municipal clerk, with the goal being that if the other clerks have the tags when people come in to get their dog's license, then they'll just receive the registration as though they were the registration tag as though they were doing it at the town clerk's office, which for the Village of Ossining is the case. But as I previously mentioned, currently, I don't think the Village of Ossining Code or the Village of Briarcliff Manor Code contemplate this scheduling of licensing. So we have to try to figure out how that would work out.
And the clerk has access to the addresses that are unincorporated versus Village of Ossining?
I believe so.
Yes.
I know there's some way to do it because
Yes,
this is like
absolutely.
the pool at the rec center.
Right.
There used to be
Yes.
separate fees for a town outside and now there aren't. So there's obviously a way to do it.
And I just heard it say, metal tags. Think on that, because I know everything is in plastic nowadays. That's
But
the only
we
thing
got
I'm saying.
feedback that the plastic tags broke before the year.
Oh,
So that's why,
okay.
that was feedback that we got from people that go to the dog park.
Oh, all right.
Yeah, that was why it was included that way, but certainly if there's other options that can be considered, this is not in its final form. And then,
Maybe we want to make sure that we don't have to tie our hands by saying metal. Just say tags, and
Colored
it can still be, right, colored tags, and we can just have the option to choose the best tag then. The
okay.
clerk would have that option. Basically.
And then the next portion or the next section goes on to say that non-residents, meaning any dogs not within the unincorporated town of Ossining, the Village of Ossining, or the portion of the Village of Briarcliff Manor located within the town of Ossining, are required to separately register with the town clerk in order to be able to access the dog parks. And then for the registration fees, it contemplates, as I discussed before, that the unincorporated town, the Village of Ossining, and the portion of Briarcliff Manor in the town will not be charged a fee for registering their dogs. However, non-resident dogs that are outside of that group will have to pay a registration fee in an amount that will be set by resolution of the town board as it would be amended from time to time. So, and then just another comment, while we're contemplating this scenario of having Briarcliff distribute the tags to its residents when they license their dogs, is that on the last page, there's a provision that says anyone who registers for the dog parks with the town clerk shall receive a copy of these rules and regulations at the time of registration. So that only contemplates the town clerk. So, but if you're asking Briarcliff to do it and there's some sort of understanding that they will, that should probably be amended to contemplate that they would also get this, because I think one of the goals that the town board was trying to achieve was to have people know and understand what they are and are not allowed to do in the dog parks.
Correct. Is there anybody here to address the town board at this public hearing on the amendments to Chapter 74 of the Town Code entitled Dogs? Going once, going twice. Okay, so I ask that for a motion to adjourn this public hearing.
I don't know if you want to do it August 6th or hold it over a little bit longer to try to get some more feedback.
August 6th.
Okay.
Okay, so let's go for August 6th, because, yeah, we have a couple of missed meetings, and that way, if there's anybody who sees the signs that we put up and is anxious to come to a meeting, they'll have that opportunity.
Okay.
When would it go on?
I don't, later. Maybe as soon as it's approved. Oh,
So
I guess it would
I
be
guess
June
that makes
2020.
sense, June 2020.
the way the local law is, because I was working off of what was currently in the code, this is just kind of the text of it. But as some of you may know, when we usually adopt local laws, there's a section 1 that talks about intent, and then there's a section at the end that talks about the effective date. And so I'll have to revise that to put it in that format, which is a great point. Usually we just put that it goes into effect upon filing with the Secretary of State, because that's just the standard language. But if the board wanted to have a phase in, or say June 1st, because that's when, I mean, currently dogs are supposed to be licensed annually. the issue is the way it's worded now, you get your license whenever, and then it's good for a year from that date, and then you just need to renew it. So there's no continuity among everyone to get their licenses by X date. So I'm open to suggestions about how the board wants to handle that. Otherwise, I would just say that the effective date would be when the clerk's office is going to start handing out the tags for dog park registration. And so I think we would need to know from the clerk's office what that would entail, how much time they would need in order to be able to do that. Okay. So that'll have to be a little bit of an ongoing conversation, but thank you for pointing that out.
I have a motion to adjourn this public hearing to August 6th. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? All right, so next up, the sewer district public hearing, increase and improvement of facilities of consolidated sewer district in the town of Ossining, Westchester County, New York. The town is looking to borrow $100,000 to make improvements to our sewer district, specifically with regards to lift station generator replacement. For those of you who are not aware, our lift stations play a critical role in our sanitary sewer systems. Operating generators ensure that should power go offline to these machines, there is a backup in place so our sewer system can continue to operate. Our highway superintendent and engineering team are currently surveying which generators are in most urgent need of replacement, and we can expect to purchase between 3 and 4 new generators with these funds. As we have used some of our fund balance in this district already this year to purchase replacement pumps, we were advised that bonding was the best way to go to initiate this next phase of upgrading our system. I would like to call our town comptroller, Tom Warren, up to the podium to discuss this public hearing, and I will ask him to return later on in the agenda to discuss the 2 related resolutions. Mr. Warren.
Thank you, and good evening, Supervisor Levenberg and members of the town board. We've been working with our bond counsel, Tom Myers from Oric, to, because this is an unusual process. Usually when we borrow money for capital purpose, like to buy a vehicle, there's just a bond resolution. And depending upon the period of probable usefulness of the asset, it would either be subject to a permissive referendum or not. Like, for instance, a police car has a 3-year life. That is not subject to a permissive referendum, whereas like a very large highway truck that might have a 15-year useful life would be subject to a permissive referendum. And then after that expires, or even if it doesn't have to occur, there's always that period of the estoppel period that allows the public another opportunity to challenge the process. But with a sewer district, as you mentioned, we're having a public hearing because for special districts, that's the process. There's no permissive referendum required on borrowing. Instead, up front, you have the public hearing, and the residents are notified through the legal notice process of the public hearing. And during the public hearing, the public has a chance to be heard. And then also, I would say, I don't know if this is the opportunity or later on, to allow additional information to be provided, like the effect on the taxpayers on their tax bill, and also the need for such purchase and such. So I don't know if that's
I think you
appropriate
could
now.
provide that information now. This is a fine time.
I think it would be useful to be part of the record on the public hearing.
Would somebody like to speak about the purpose, or do you think that we have enough information?
Thought I did, but I'm happy to invite our highway superintendent, who happens to be here, to speak briefly about the use of generators for lift stations. If you want to talk briefly about those and why we believe we need some new ones.
to be honest, I just found out about it a day and a half ago. Okay, so we are compiling what we need at some of our lift stations. Some are going to be replaced with the condominium project on Hawks Avenue, another with the Children's Hospital on next to Cedar Lane Park, I believe. That's in that contract, right? No, okay. So that's going to be upgraded. So I was just told Tuesday by Water Superintendent and Sewer Superintendent Teese that this is the way, we're going to proceed. So I don't have anything prepared tonight
Just
to go on.
if you could just talk a little bit more detail on how generators serve us at lift stations. That's what I was hoping
Well,
to
they
talk
are,
about.
like you
What the
mentioned,
generators do.
during a storm, they are back up. They're an essential part of the system out of each station. The storage is just going to continue into the wet well, and without power, it can't discharge to the other, to the facility, to the county. So they are very, very important, and we do need backups that work, that are, modern, preferably maybe gas, and so it is a, essential part of the operation.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, we'll make sure that next time we have an opportunity for further discussion about this, we can we'll bring our water superintendent in to talk further about this. When we're approving the presumably in the future, when we, after we bonded and we're going to be purchasing them.
You was saying about generators are back up. You're gonna get backup. Either way, you're gonna get backup with the generator or without it.
Well, let's hope the pump works too at the same time,
Yes.
right? Mm-hmm.
Okay, I just like to in a little bit more detail. Oftentimes we have electrical surges, and sometimes our pumps fail because the electricity that is going to the pumps isn't there anymore. So at that point, when that's not functioning, we count on our backup generators to provide power to them, to the lift station, so that they can continue to function. It doesn't always work, but if we don't have the backup in place, it's even more likely that we're going to have a failure for a longer period of time than if we do, which is why we have backup generators for all of our pumps. Our generators have been aging. This has been a project that has been recommended to us for many years, as I understand it, by the company that services our pump stations, that we look into getting generators that are in better shape than the ones we currently have. So based on that information and the information that we have these aging generators, we're looking at which ones are top of the list to replace, and we will have that information in place when we are ready to purchase the generators.
Becomes an
Hope that's good.
environmental issue too. You only have so many hours that the wet well will fill up, and if the generator doesn't run, then it's going to spill, and it's going to be a environmental issue then. So that's why it's important to have them in place and working and up to date.
Great.
Okay.
Correct me
Thank
if
you.
I'm wrong, but isn't it less expensive to have a backup generator than have to pay the pump trucks that come, should your
Absolutely.
backup generator fail like we did earlier in the year?
Yeah, if the pump
So-
fails, yes. If the pump fails, then we have to
Then
do
we
that.
either have to
And
hire
often-
somebody to sit there with a pump, which is ridiculously expensive, or have the proper equipment available, which is the better way to go.
And we do have a lot of pieces in place. We have an alarm company that also services our alarms. Our highway department is basically on call around the clock to make sure that if there's a failure at one of our pump stations, that somebody can report to that failure. We have a company that services our pump stations regularly, and we have a company that also services the generators. So with all of that, we hope that they continue to function, and we want to make sure that we have that protections in place going into the future. Mr. Warren.
And also I'd like to add, in addition to the expense involved in getting a company in to pump the pump station, or a disaster of some type, there could be fines levied by the state government for pollution related. So this is all part of being proactive. I also wanted to talk about the timing of this bond resolution. We're getting ready to have a bond sale and a band sale next week in conjunction with the current bond anticipation notes that come due in the middle of August. Some of the BANs have to be converted to a serial bond. So we're working up against that deadline, and this was the last opportunity to try to introduce a bond resolution to be included in next week's bond sale to raise money for this purpose. Otherwise, it would be delayed another year.
Got it.
And I also wanted to talk about the potential impact on the taxpayer at $100,000 with assumed interest rate of 2.35% interest rate for a year. Currently, there's 1,966 sewer units that are included on the tax roll at $52 a piece. And based on our calculations with this number of sewer units and assuming that there's going to be either a 10 or a 15-year option to pay it back, make the debt service payments on the bond anticipation note, and eventually when it becomes a serial bond, for 10 years, the $52 would have to increase to by about $6, and for a 15-year debt service payback, it would be less than $5 increase. The math calculated out to $4.60 per unit. So that's part of the evaluation when we're working on the budget for 2020. And so after this public hearing closes later on in the agenda, there's a resolution that's called a public interest order in which the town board would be making the determination that that this would be in the best interest of the consolidated sewer district, and that their recommendation would be to go ahead and approve the expenditure at a maximum estimated cost of $100,000, and then that's followed by a bond resolution to actually authorize the issuance of a serial bond and or bond anticipation note until such time as it gets converted to a serial bond.
So with that, is there anybody here from the public who would like to address the board on the public hearing regarding increase and improvement of facilities of consolidated sewer district in the town of Austin, Westchester County, New York? Once? Twice? Might I have a motion to close this public hearing?
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Very much. Okay, so with that, we are completed our public hearing section of this meeting, and we're moving into our special presentation. And this evening, I want to invite Rob Danielle from O'Connor Davies to come up and join us for what I believe is very positive news regarding the town's 2018 financial audit. I also want to thank our finance team, specifically our Comptroller Tom Warren and Deputy Comptroller Dale Ferreira, as well as Maddie Zahach in my office for doing an exceptional job all year long to keep us organized and following all of our state and local policies and regulations. You guys make us look good. Thank you very much. And thank you to Stanley from Senator Carlucci's office for the technical assistance. Very appreciative. Rob, good evening.
All right, good evening, and thank you for having me present the audit results for the town of Ossining for the fiscal year ended December 31st, 2018. I try to put together a PowerPoint that's on the screen as well as a hard copy to condense the actual financial statement, which is about 100 pages long. Do I click that, or if I could use the mouse? There we go. Thank you. Okay.
And once again, thank you,
Hang on
Stanley.
to this.
So again, there's a lot of information in the PowerPoint. I'm going to briefly touch upon some areas. I just wanted you to see certain trends and possibly use this as you move forward with your next budget. Again, before I begin, I just wanted to thank the supervisor, budget director, as well as the finance folks, Tom Warren and Dale Ferrara, again, for their audit readiness, their professionalism, and really being responsive throughout the entire audit process. On page 2, we're going to spend a little time, spend a little time in the general fund and the town outside villages fund, or your unincorporated fund, and then we'll briefly touch upon the town's other funds, and then there's some summary closing points. If we turn to the next page, page 3, our field work was completed in April with some follow-up and completion in May. Our report is actually dated May 15, 2019. Our deliverables include the independent auditor's report on the basic financial statements. We've issued what is termed an unmodified opinion. An unmodified opinion is a clean opinion. It's the highest level of assurance that we can provide you as external auditors. And it basically says that the financial statements present fairly the financial position of the town as of December 31st, 2018, in accordance with accounting principles generally accepted in the United States of America. We also issue our required communications to those charged with governance, along with our management letter. And I'm happy to report that we did not identify control deficiencies that we consider to be material weaknesses or significant deficiencies concerning internal control over financial reporting. We also audit and issue the town justice court audit, and that is a separate report that we issue. It should be included in your packet. And again, the last bullet there, as far as the audit is concerned, there were no recorded audit adjustments or unrecorded audit adjustments, and that means that we didn't pass on any entries. If anything was proposed, it was recorded. If we turn to the general fund, again, this is a snapshot as of December 31st, 2018 in summary form. There are 4 columns. The first column is the original budget, and that's what the town board approved back in the winter of 2017. Again, from a high level, your revenues were $5.4 million. Your expenditures were a little over $5 million, representing an excess of revenues over expenditures of $423,000. You factor in some transfers to the debt service fund to cover your principal and interest on your bonds, as well as some transfers to the capital projects fund to continue some projects. You come down to that net change in fund balance, the bracket at $86,000, and that's really what the town utilized of its own resources to balance the budget. Of that $86,000, $21,862 are prior year encumbrances that automatically roll into 2018 and amend the budget, and $65,000 is what the town utilized in 2017 of its own resources, of its own fund balance to balance the 2018 budget. The middle column, there are some adjustments made to the final budget. You can see total expenditures went up about $62,000, and that was to fund some recreational heavy equipment. So the budget was modified both on the expense side and the revenue side from your appropriated fund balance. And the third column are your actual results. And in the general fund, you can see your actual revenues were $5.3 million compared to your final budget of $5.4 million. A little shortfall or negative variance of about $134,000. However, on the expenditure side, your expenditures were less than budgeted, $4.8 million versus $5.1 million, representing a favorable or a positive variance of almost $248,000. So from an actual perspective, you had revenues that exceeded expenditures. When you factor in transfers, you did end the year with expenditures that exceeded revenues by about $102,000. You subtract that from your opening fund balance of $3.4 million, you still end the year with $3.3 million, which is a healthy fund balance. Just one thing to note on that net change in fund balance line, again, you were anticipating using $86,000 of your own funds to balance the budget. you did amend that upwards to $216,000, but you only really needed to utilize the $102,000 for the year. So that swing of anticipating the use of $216,000, but only really needing $102 represents a budgetary surplus all the way to the right there, about $113,000. So again, the general fund is financially stable, financially strong. You've held the line on expenditures, and we'll talk about some of those revenue and expenditure variances. I added a chart here on your fund balance in the general fund, a 3-year comparison. We're going to focus on 2018, but again, if you look, your fund balance in the aggregate in the total column went from $3 million up to almost $3.4 million in 2017, and it's slightly down about $100,000 or so to $3.3 million the current year. There are certain areas here. There are 3 buckets, if you will. There are monies set aside in what we call non-spendable fund balance, the $70,000. The town does pay its retirement bill in December to take advantage of a discount that's offered by the state. So in essence, they are prepaying the state retirement bill. So those funds are set aside for that purpose. And in the middle section there, you can see what's termed subsequent years expenditures. You are utilizing about $25,000 to balance the current budget you're in of your own resources. And again, we like to compare the unassigned, the $3.1 million, to your 2019 adopted budget in the general fund of $5.6 million, and you have a healthy fund balance of a little over 56%. I mean, and this gives the town the ability to utilize funds in the future, again, for capital project needs, or to appropriate those funds to assist in balancing the budget down the road. We also like to compare the unassigned fund balance as a percentage of your total expenditures. You can see in 2016, your fund balance was about $2.8 million on expenditure of a little over $5 million, roughly about a little over 56%. That dipped down in 2017 with some, although your fund balance went up, the expenditures went up for some planned transfers, your capital projects fund, and you did pay off a bond when it became callable. So those were planned transfers to do so. So although your fund balance went up, your expenditures went up a little bit higher. So it dipped a little bit in 2017, but it went way up in 2018 to over 58% as compared to your expenses. Just quickly on the revenue side, I mentioned before that you came in a little bit short on your revenues, about $134,000. Basically, there were 4 areas you can see on that page. Your real property taxes, anything that's not collected within 60 days after year end, we defer. That's the rule. So based on that calculation, as well as anticipated tax collections that were less than expected, resulted in your real property taxes not coming in to budget. Your other tax items include your interest and penalties on taxes, and that fell short of the budget by about $87,000 or so, again, directly related to your real property tax collections. The area of use of money and property, which is your interest earnings, again, due to the favorable interest rates, your interest earnings did exceed the budget by about $78,000, which is positive. And then your state aid, which includes your mortgage tax, you did realize a little over $600,000 in mortgage tax revenues, which was $156,000 better than you budgeted. So overall, you were within about 2.5% of your adopted budget on the revenue side. The next page is just some trends. I'm not going to spend that much time. But we took the top 5 or 6 revenue drivers over the past 3 years, including your property taxes. And again, although there were slight tax increases all within the tax cap, the anticipated tax collections being less than expected resulted in that decrease in 2018. In the line, it says gain on sale of tax acquired property. In previous years, you did acquire property, sold it within that same year, generating some revenues. That wasn't the case in 2018. Again, your interest and penalties on taxes directly related to your real property tax collections, as mentioned before. You do have intermunicipal services, clerk services, parking services with the village of Ossining. And those charges are based on contractual agreements and intermunicipal agreements. And your fines and forfeited bail, which is your tickets that are issued, that's have seen an increase over the past 3 years, so that's trending upwards. And again, although your state aid, your mortgage tax, as I mentioned, although you see actually dropped because 2017 was a great year, you did exceed the budget by $156,000. So it shows that the economy is improving slowly, but not to the levels that we saw in 2017. Very quickly, these are the expenses in the general fund. You can see all the way to the right. We had favorable variances or positive variances in all categories. General government support are your administrative costs. What's termed economic opportunity and development are your transportation support services. Culture and recreation are your parks and youth programs. And employee benefits are your hospital, medical insurance, state retirement, and all those saw positive variances. Again, about $248,000 on the expenditure side, roughly 4.8% total expenses. We did the same for the expenditures. We took the top 5 or 6 expenditure drivers. And again, just briefly, as I mentioned, your general government support, that includes your town justice, your tax collector, assessor, town clerk, actually slightly down about $60,000 or so in the current year. Your transportation support services are comparable over the past 3 years. Your parks expenditures slightly trending upwards in 2017 compared to 2018. Your state retirement has remained relatively flat. The rates haven't increased, so that's good news. And your hospital medical insurance actually was consistent with 2017. There was some reallocation of highway employees, so there was a small drop in general fund and a slight increase in the highway fund. And then the transfers out, debt service fund, those are your principal and interest requirements on your outstanding bonds. Capital projects fund are based, back one slide.
Yeah, I think you were talking about that. No?
No, I'm on this.
Yeah, but the slide that you were on before was the town outside villages. Okay. Yeah, go ahead, forward one. There you go.
Oh, sorry. All right, and again, the transfers out, that service requirements, again, for your bonded indebtedness. Capital projects is going to be reflective of your capital needs. You can see a big jump in 2017, not so much in 2018, and then your special purpose fund is funding for the Dale Cemetery, which has been consistent over the past 3 years. Okay. So then we move on to the Town Outside Village Fund. Again, same setup, the 4 columns. First column is what you adopted back in the winter of 2017. You come down to the net change in fund balance. You can see there's a bracketed just under $20,000. Those are prior year encumbrances. No changes to the final budget. We come down to your actual results, and you can see your revenues had a positive variance of just under $396,000 compared to your final budget. Your expenditures also saw a positive variance of about $192,000. The Town Outside Villages Fund ended the year with revenues that exceeded expenditures. I'm on the third column, third line up there, by $569,000. So you're able to add that to your opening fund balance of $3.1 million, and you end the year at $3.6 million. Again, a healthy fund balance, and we'll briefly talk about it here. Again, a 3-year comparison. You can see that your fund balance in the aggregate has gone from $2.6 million in 2016 up to $3.1 million in 2017, up about $570,000 to $3.6 million. So you were able to add a substantial amount to your fund balance over the past 3 years. And again, in the 2018 columns, Of the $3.6 million, there's some funds set aside, restricted for cable television purposes, about $128,000. And there are some encumbrances of about $15,000 that'll automatically amend next year's budget. Again, same scenario, we compare the assigned fund balance as a percentage of total expenditures, and again, very healthy fund balance compared to your budget or your actual expenditures. 2016, roughly around 75%. 2017, a little bit higher than that, about 76%. And big dip in 2018, you're up about 95%. Extremely healthy fund balance in the unincorporated. Then again, how did we get there? As I mentioned before, your revenues exceeded your final budget by $395,000. Again, in the area of non-property taxes, you had sales tax revenues that came in better than budget, about $165,000. You had departmental income, which is your building inspection fees, your zoning fees, your planning board fees. They exceeded the budget by $212,000. And on the other end, your state aid, which is your mortgage tax, fell slightly short of budget by $30,000. But again, overall, a positive variance, just under $400,000. Again, took the top 5 or 6 drivers from the unincorporated fund. Over the past 3 years, your real property taxes have been consistent with the prior year. Your franchise fees, again, were edging upwards in 2017 and saw a small drop in 2018. Your non-property tax distribution from the county, which is your sales tax, has been trending upwards over the past 3 years. Your departmental income saw a huge jump. Building inspection fees exceeded the budget by over $200,000 in the current year, generating $300,000 in income. And your transfers to the debt service fund, again, in 2017, that was a planned transfer to pay off a bond from a sale of property. So roughly that's come down in 2018, which is normally what the transfers are for the debt service fund. So again, a 3-year comparison. Jump to the expenditure side. Again, all the way to the right, as I mentioned before, expenditure savings in all categories, most notably in the employee benefits section, hospital and medical insurance. So about $131,000 of the $192,000 favorable variance. This is a 3-year comparison on the expenditure side of the budget. Again, your general government support, which are your administrative costs, they're up about $70,000. Your police expense is based on an intermunicipal agreement with the village, and that's based on contractual increases. Your building inspection has been trending upwards over the past 3 years. A low of $166,000 in 2016, up to a little over $202,000 in 2018. You do have an intermunicipal agreement with the village, and these are contractual obligations. They have been consistent over the past 3 years. And your hospital medical insurance is up slightly, about 7 or 8%. That's normal night shift medical insurance increases. And again, the transfers out are going to be based on the town's needs. As I mentioned before, there were planned transfers. That service fund in 2017, we don't see that. 2018, some transfers in the highway fund surpassed the budget in 17, slightly down in 2008. You do operate some other funds. The highway fund remains strong, although you did have expenditures that exceeded revenues by almost $350,000. You still have fund balance in the highway fund of about $727,000, which is relatively strong. You do operate several special districts funds. Again, those are found on page 78 through 81 in our issued financial statement, but those are trending positively. Those ended the year with expenditures that exceeded revenues by $19,000, but those special districts fund also have a substantial fund balance of a little over $913,000. You do operate a capital projects fund. There are currently about 22 active capital projects. The fund does have a deficit, but it is supported by, I mentioned, a bond anticipation note, $2.2 million. Bond anticipation notes are short-term financing. They're not recorded as revenues until you either pay them down or convert them to long-term bonds. Here's heading in that direction. Did add a slide here on your debt service requirements. You do have bonds outstanding of about $3.3 million. The town has not issued bonds since 2014. We are required to report the payments to maturity on the bonds over the next 5 years and then in increments of 5 years. And you can see at the bottom there, in 2019, your debt service requirements are about $540,000 on a cumulative budget of well over $15 million, roughly about 3% or 3.5% is needed to cover debt service costs in 2019. It's a relatively low percentage compared to your overall budget. Two other quick things. The town did implement a Government Accounting Standards Board statement number 75 in 2018. Again, this superseded, again, not to get technical, but statement 45, and this is reported on your post-employment benefits, which again, it's something that we are required to report. There is no funding mechanism in place to put money aside for this, but actuaries hired to calculate the benefits to be paid based on some census data that is provided. What 75 did compared to statement 45, statement 45 lets you amortize this liability over 30 years. Statement 75 says no more, and I record the entire liability. As you can see down at the second bullet there, your liability last year was $6.5 million. With the new pronouncement, your liability is closer to $15 million. Again, this is all actuarially determined. Again, this doesn't affect your budget process, only to the extent the next bullet there is you still pay these benefits on a pay-as-you-go basis, and you're funding those about $500,000 a year, which has been consistent over the past 3 years. And the last bullet there is your pension reporting. You are part of the employee retirement system. You get a bill, you pay for that bill. State invests those funds, and based on those results, the system is either overfunded or underfunded. As of 12/31/2018, the state's system was funded at 94.7%, which is a great percentage to be at, but the 5.3% that is not funded, every municipality picks up its proportionate share of that underfunding, if you will. And for the town's piece, that proportionate share was about $346,000, something we have to record. Statements doesn't affect, you'll get your bill, you still pay it. Normally do. It's a required disclosure. And just to close, again, the continuation of the town's overall good financial health can be credited to continued leadership of you folks, the town board, and the administration. The town has remained within the 2% has not exceeded 2% tax cap or tax levy limitation law since it was enacted back in June of 2011. And the town does some effective purchasing procedures, strategic use of services from the village that results in IMA agreements with the village of Ossining. And why is this important? Why is financial health important? Because it assists you in the computation of the town's tax levy. It improves your cash flow and can impact your credit rating. Currently, the town maintains a AA2 bond rating for Moody's. This financial health is also important because you can fund unexpected or unbudgeted contingent expenditures while you're still preserve the town's programs. One bullet I added here is that the town does guarantee the full payment of the school district warrant and assumes the responsibility for those uncollected taxes. So by April of the subsequent year, so by April of 2019, the town had to make the school district whole and assumed those those uncollected taxes. In some municipalities, they don't have the funding. They need to go out and borrow what's termed a tax anticipation note. But the town has not had to do that, at least over the past 7 to 10 years that I'm aware of. So it's able to do that without additional interest cost incurred. And it enables the town to meet future challenges by having that financial health. As I mentioned before, we did issue a report to those charged with governance. It's termed our management letter. Again, no material weaknesses or significant deficiencies noted. And then there are new government accounting standard boards pronouncements that will affect the town next year in 2020. There is a little typo there that should say GASB Statement 84, which are fiduciary activities. Town does operate an agency fund where you hold money on behalf of others. Right now, it's just shown as cash and a payable to those vendors. The state controller wants you to now to record the revenues and expenses associated with those. So you start with the beginning balance, revenues, expenses, and ending balance, more disclosure. And then the bottom one, your leases will be effective for the town in 2020. And if there are leases, most likely there'll be capital leases. We'll have to pick them up as an asset and a liability. So again, we'll take care of that. That doesn't affect you, but we'll ask for some information gathering by then. That's all I have. I hope I was able to condense. I know it probably took more time than you wanted, but I hope I was able to provide some information.
Always very helpful to have this explanation and this look at how we're doing in terms of from an outside perspective and from PK of O'Connor Davies. We appreciate all your work and the work of your staff coming in and taking a hard look and making sure that are accounting properly for all of our revenues and expenses. There were just a couple of very tiny little things I just wanted to point out, which was that we have 2 school districts that we make whole, and we have IMAs with both of our villages also, Briarcliff as well as Ossining, and that is something that we value, our relationships, and all that do together to improve efficiencies and make it easier for our residents to make use of the public services that are available to them. It does seem that we are in good shape when you look at our fund balance as a percentage of our overall budgets in both unincorporated town outside as well as the town general. And I just wanted to share that we continue to look for ways to put that money back in to serve the public, especially looking at infrastructure. As we mentioned a couple meetings back, we anticipate that our sales tax revenues are going to increase significantly as the state recently approved an increase of 1% to the county tax, and we anticipate we will be seeing a chunk of that. That would go to the town outside budget. I believe by state statute, that's how it would getting out. That's how it gets allocated when it comes here. So we do anticipate seeing additional revenues, and oftentimes when we see that kind of increase, we are looking for opportunities to again to put it back into improvements to our infrastructure so that we can make sure that we can do our best to keep up within the tax cap world that we're in, different than school districts that whose capital expenditures are outside of the tax cap. In municipalities, those are part of the tax cap and part of the budget that we need to keep within that 2% or CPI, whichever is less. For many years, it has been significantly less. I think this is the first year that the cap is looking like it might be close to 2%. It is close to 2%, but it hasn't been in the past, and that's basically makes it more and more challenging for us to look at our expenditures and figure out how we can creatively underwrite the expenses that it takes to maintain all the services and capital expenses that we have to maintain. So with that, I'd like to open it up to the board for any questions for Rob or for Tom or anybody else.
Thorough presentation.
You.
Cliff notes.
Yeah, that's always helpful.
Very much appreciated.
Thank you, Rob. I just wanted to add something else. So, all of our department heads are excellent in, how they manage their budget. And, we've tried to tighten up things as far as our procurement policy and, always be looking for ways to get better and to keep all of our department heads on top of exactly how much money it is that they have to spend and sending out monthly reports so that they're, in line, and, discussing some of these things at staff meetings. But I also want to really congratulate some of our employees, one of whom was on the bargaining team for the CSEA contract, because as Rob mentioned, some of the allocation in the health insurance between funds, that's true, but we also instituted something new this year as far as an increased health insurance buyout for one of our bargaining units, and that was actually the idea of one of our employees, and it ended up saving us quite a bit of money. So, we're all working together on the same team, and it's pretty seamless, and it's a lot to be proud of. So,
Absolutely.
we're letting me
Thank
continue
you
to be
for
a part
pointing
of
that out, and thank you for all of your good direction and thoughtfulness, Ms. Zahatch, as our budget director, and keeping everybody in line and very much apprised of where they stand in their expenditures for the year. That's really, really helpful. Again, thanks to our comptroller, Tom Warren, our deputy comptroller, Dale Ferreira, for all of her hard work and his hard work for us on a daily basis. Rob, thanks so much. And
Thank you.
we hope to see you again in April
Yes.
and December.
Both, yeah.
Okay. December and then, yeah. Okay. Thanks and have a
Thank
great
you.
night.
Thank you.
All right. So with that, I think we're moving into the next part of our agenda, which is announcements. Tomorrow, from 5 to 7 p.m., the school district and the Ossining School District and the Ossining Police Department will be hosting the second of 4 block parties at Yale Avenue and Denny Street in the village of Ossining. So make sure that you head down there. The last one was exceptional, and I anticipate that tomorrow will be equally exceptional. There are lots of activities, lots of food. There were, I think there was some Zumba, and there was a read along, and I think that there was a food pantry, and there were also hot dogs and hamburgers, as well as a chef tasting and demonstration. And I'm sure tomorrow there will be even more exciting activities for the community. So make sure to stop by. This Friday, head down for Food Truck Fridays and Summer Concert Series performance by Ossining favorite, the Mike Risco Band. The music starts at 7 p.m. We'll come down early at 5 p.m. for the food trucks. The Chamber of Commerce has blown us away with the great lineup of food trucks they have put together these past few weeks, and attendance down at the waterfront has been booming. I'm excited to taste what they have in store for us this Friday. So far we heard that there will be Ahi Limo, Brothers Fish and Chips, and the EMB Rice Ball Truck will be back at the waterfront. And newcomers Foodie Bus, Penny Lick Ice Cream, Lobster Craft, and Baked by Susan will also be joining in the fun. Word is there will also be a wine tasting, and the Chamber of Commerce will be selling craft beer curated by Tapsmith in Croton. As a reminder, there will be no concert on Friday, August 2nd, as the Ossining Fire Department Parade is scheduled for that evening. Make sure that you plan to attend that as well. It's going to be another great night, getting down to the waterfront and then down at the waterfront. Mind, Body, Spirit Ossining continues this weekend, first with Recess Rocks by Open Door on Friday, July 28th at 3:30 p.m. at Lewis Angle Park, which is a change from maybe what was originally publicized. On Saturday, Solara Delphi will lead a class in Sharkey, the belly dance workout at 11 a.m. at Sparta Park. And Sue Radpavar of Studio 95 Zumba will lead a class at Market Square at 4 p.m. also on Saturday. Also, next Saturday, August 3rd, join Ben Levitt for Tai Chi Easy at Cedar Lane Park at 9 a.m. for the last of his monthly Tai Chi classes. If you register in advance on the town's website, you will qualify for raffles from Club Fit Briarcliff and UMAC Briarcliff and be notified in the event of a weather-related cancellation. So we hope you will come join us. Tonight, if you aren't there right now, you might want to hurry and get over to St. Augustine's Church for their 42nd annual Italian Festival. The festival runs from tonight until Sunday, July 28th, and every night from 6 to 11 p.m. Tomorrow night, July 24th, will be their annual fireworks display. Come and enjoy the delicious food, rides, fireworks, casino, games, and so much more. Next Thursday, August 1st at 7:30 p.m., the Ferry Sloop Summer Music Series continues with a performance by singer-songwriter Rosie D'Angelo. Head over to the Shattuck Yacht Club to enjoy a night of live acoustic music on their deck overlooking the Hudson. Admission is free and open to the public. And I have to say, I was sitting on that deck this past weekend for Ladies Kayak Day, which was quite lovely in the brutal heat. So I'm sure it'll be great any night this summer. This weekend, Westchester Collaborative Theater's short plays continue. I saw them last week, and they were outstanding. There are 4 shows left Friday through Sunday, so get your tickets now. Next, and that's at wctheater.org. They also have on Saturday, August 3rd, their jazz music series continues with the Valerie Capers Quartet featuring Valerie, an accomplished performer, educator, and composer, and her band, John Robinson on bass, Alan Givens on saxophone and flute, and Doug Richardson on drums. The band will perform 2 sets at 7:30 p.m. and 9 p.m. at WCT at 23 Water Street. $20 tickets can be purchased online at wctheater.org. I do also think that the Magician that was supposed to be down at the waterfront was rescheduled, I believe, for August 13th. But check the Village of Austin page for that. And the concert in the Law Memorial Park that was scheduled for last Thursday in Briarcliff was rescheduled, I believe, for August 15th. So we've had some weather changes, so please check the local village websites for the details. Finally, I want to address the fact that 1 week ago today, we were all seated in this room with a standing room only crowd of Austin residents who came to listen to our work session and or voice their concerns about the proposed River Knoll project. I make it a point not to conduct business on social media as a matter of course, but I am aware that there has been a lot of back and forth about the proceedings and perhaps a suggestion that this is a fait accompli. I want to assure you, the residents who elected us to serve you, that this is not the case. The town board has and will continue to carefully consider all concerns and issues that have been raised and take all feedback under advisement. We are listening to you. While this project has not yet been returned to the town board by the planning board, I urge you to continue to participate in the review process and let us know your concerns on the proposal before the town. This process is far from over, and we are here to listen to all viewpoints. Please keep engaging with us as we work through this process together. And with that, I would like to go to I'd like to ask the town board if you have any other announcements. Okay, hearing none, we're going to move into our departmental reports, and this evening we have 2 from the same person with 2 different hats. Pete Connolly is our department head with 2 hats. Mr. Connolly was appointed to the position of superintendent of cemeteries almost 5 years ago and has recently assumed the second role of appointed superintendent of highways, finishing out the unexpired term of Michael G. O'Connor following his retirement this past April. Pete's going to give us an update on both of the departments he's overseeing in his dual role. Thank you, Mr. Connolly.
You're welcome. Hello again.
Hello.
At the cemetery, I'll start with Dale Cemetery. We've had 34 interments there so far this year. And just last month, we've had 1 interment at Sparta Cemetery on Revolutionary Road. All our current Monument Foundation orders are up to date. That was completed last week. The Ossining Historical Cemeteries Conservancy purchased 2 new park benches, which we installed with the help of the Highway Department just the other day. And they also purchased a coffee tree. Don't ask me what the official name is because I can't pronounce it. And that has been planted in Section 5. So That's kind of a
Said coffee
unique
tray, but you said tree.
tree. I'm
Okay.
sorry, tree. Yeah, no, not coffee tray, tree.
Okay.
Yep. Whenever possible, we work together with the Parks Department now, cutting and maintaining the cemetery grass there and at Sparta. And looking ahead for next quarter at the cemetery, we continue to work on our yearly tree trimming and are working on a return date for the Monument Preservation Company to come back, who fixes the broken older monuments in the older sections of the cemetery. So moving along there. For the Highway Department, our mechanics have begun the replacement of a rotted truck body on number 56. As you know, anything salt saves lives, on traffic and roadways, but it really tears apart metal. And that body on that truck was rotten. You could put your hand through it. So this vehicle will be used strictly just for the winter months. We had a spare spreader in stock, which is stainless steel, so that didn't rot. So we're doing that all in-house, and it's going to give us a good vehicle that has a newer engine that we could use during the winter months.
And by doing so, you saved us how much?
Approximately $30,000. The new body was over 40. I think we're going to be in about the 7,000 or 8,000 range in parts. And all the labor was done in-house. So
Thank you.
we did repairs to storm drainage pipes along Samstag Avenue, Old Albany Post Road, Minko Road, and Tappan Terrace over the last couple of months. Speaking of sewer lift stations before, at Whitetail Circle, we experienced a electrical malfunction which caused one of the pumps to burn out. Our electrician responded right away and replaced the damaged circuit panel, and we had to take one of our pumps out of our backup supply. So that burnt out pump was over 20 years old, so it wasn't recommended that it be replaced. So we have a new one ordered for Whitetail.
It wasn't recommended that it
be replaced.
Repaired.
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 Yeah, I'm
Yes.
sorry, not
No,
the
that's
pump
okay.
itself, right? Yep. And also at Mystic Point, same thing happened. Fortunately, we had another one in stock, and that one will be rebuilt by our pump maintainer. We've begun to install screening at our 2 pump stations at Parker Vale and the S-turn, so you don't see the generator and the pumping and everything that's behind there. It's coming out and it looks good. So blends in with the greenery in the background. Hopefully next month or sometime in September, we'll be replacing about 950 feet of guardrail throughout the town where it's needed. It's going to be a 2-step process. We'll finish up next year with the remaining. The office received a fresh coat of paint, new vinyl floors in the locker room, the restrooms. Oh, good. Thank you. And new carpet in the office area. All that, the painting was done in-house, and the tile and that we gave out. We received our new shop utility truck with snowplow. This is the vehicle that the mechanics will be using to respond to vehicle breakdowns and sewer lift station problems. It's equipped with a crane, so that'll also help remove the pumps in the lift stations when needed. And we just continue to work on our regular maintenance, such as utility markouts on a daily basis, brush and appliance pickups, catch basin and pothole repairs, grass cutting, again, lift station alarms and repairs, and attend mandatory safety training as Maddie requires. So, I have.
Thank you. I just want to say thank you for an excellent report, and we appreciate all of the hard work that you've done. We know that the facelift that you've given over to the office building over there has, we believe, increased morale and made everybody feel proud of where they work, which is really important to keeping our staff doing the best work they can for our residents. And all of your heads up contributions to the town, I think, are going to be super appreciated because you're really making sure that our roads are in the best condition they can be, and all of the associated infrastructure issues that the highway is responsible for. So thank you for doing such a great job there, as well as with our cemetery. And you also serve on the board of the not-for-profit OHCC, which we just had a meeting with yesterday to take a look at some of the needs of our historic Sparta Cemetery and how we can make sure that we maintain it similar to how we maintain our parks going forward. And I appreciate your input with that group as well, and just sort of helping to identify priorities and making sure that we're offering the best we can to our community. Anybody else have anything that they would like to add to that?
Thank you for your work on Tappan Terrace. Appreciate it.
You're welcome. You're welcome. Thank you for the compliments, but you know, I can't do it myself. The women and men of the town highway department work very, very hard, I found, on a daily basis. And they're all sincere in what they do, and they give their at least 8 hours a day, and they take pride in what they do. So, okay, thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else?
No, thanks, Pete.
Okay. Thank you so much, Pete. All right. So with that, I think we're going to move into our, oh, I'm sorry. I just want to back up because I did have a couple of extra announcements that I neglected to announce. There is free parking and fast service at the Mary Knoll Post Office. We received this in the mail today and just wanted to remind people that we do have a post office, the United States Post Office, in the unincorporated town at Mary Knoll, just off of Brookside Avenue.
Giving away my secrets.
We're giving away some
You
secrets,
know.
but they're sending out some advertising. And here's the map in case you don't know where it is. Zoom in on that. I also want to let you know that we received a press release from County Executive George Latimer's office that $4.1 million of federal grant money will be used to address lead hazards in Westchester County. Funding will ensure safe and healthy, affordable homes in Westchester County. And applications are now available to homeowners and renters who qualify for lead-based paint remediation through the U.S. Department of Housing and Urban Development's Lead Hazard Demonstration Grant Funds and Healthy Homes Supplemental Funds. And this Thursday, July 25th at 11 a.m. at 235 Spring Street in Ossining, there will be a meeting to discuss this. So anybody who's interested is welcome to attend. Also, the Ossining Historic Cemeteries Conservancy that I was just speaking about had announced that the Dale Cemetery Heritage Trail, which was made possible by a generous legislative initiative grant through the Office of New York State Senator David Carlucci, administered through the New York State Office of Parks, Recreation, and Historic Preservation, added to their Heritage Trail recently. So please make sure to check it out and take a visit to Historic Dale Cemetery in the near future. There was one other announcement, which I know I have and I can't find. So, oh, yes. Nope, that's not an announcement. That's coming up, so I'll get to that when I get to that. All right, with that, we can go into our resolutions.
Okay. Approval of minutes, regular meeting, July 9th, 2019. Resolved that the town board of the town of Ossining hereby approves the July 9th, 2019 minutes of the regular meeting as presented.
We have a motion.
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
Approval of minutes, special meeting, July 16th, 2019. Resolved that the town board of the town of Ossining hereby approves the July 16th, 2019 minutes of the special meeting as presented.
Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor? Aye. Opposed?
Approval of voucher detail report. Resolved that the town board of the town of Ossining hereby approves the voucher detail report dated July 23rd, 2019 in the amount of $420,418.01.
Do I have a motion?
Second.
Discussion? All those in favor? Aye. Opposed?
Personnel Clerk's Office appointment. Resolved that the Town Board of the Town of Ossining hereby appoints Martha Quitasaka, Ossining, to the position of Deputy Clerk in the Town Clerk's Office, effective July 29th, 2019, at a prorated annual salary of $61,162.
Do you have a motion?
Second.
So I'm very excited to offer up this resolution. When we were informed last week that our longtime Deputy Town Clerk, Anne Marie Rocco, would be moving on to a new position, we had a few excellent candidates in mind. But someone rose to the top, and I couldn't be happier about the choice. Martha Quitasaka came to us last year as a part-time clerk in our tax office, working for Receiver of Taxes Holly Perlowitz, and she's fit right in with the customer service-oriented focus that Holly worked so hard to cultivate. She is just a few credits shy of her master's degree in public administration from John Jay, and is that right? John Jay, right? Okay. I panicked. And is a fluent Spanish speaker and is generally one of the most kind and pleasant people that I have had the good fortune to work with since I came to the town. Martha is here tonight to get some board meeting practice, and she will be flying solo by this time next week. Martha, we feel very lucky to have you on our team. We have all the confidence in the world in you, and we know that you are going to be a great addition to the town and village clerk's office. So thank you. Any other comments?
Happy to have you.
Yep. Thank you for stepping up.
Okay. All those in favor?
Aye.
Enthusiastically? Anybody opposed? Of course not. Okay. Martha, welcome. We're very excited to have you. I mean, not welcome, but welcome to something new. Look forward to it. Okay.
Okay.
Holly's gonna be sick.
She already is.
Okay, resolution authorizing the supervisor to apply for and receive funding under the 2019 Department of State Local Waterfront Revitalization Program. Whereas the Town of Ossining Town Board has caused the preparation of a Department of State Local Waterfront Revitalization Program grant application to be prepared and supports the submittal of the application to the New York State Department of State, and whereas the project shall be entitled the Town of Ossining Local Waterfront Revitalization Project and Lewis Engle Waterfront Park Master Plan, and include a grant narrative, work plan, and other supporting documents necessary for submission of the application, and whereas should funding from the New York State Department of State be awarded, such state assistance shall not exceed 75% of the total eligible project costs set forth in the application, or 85% of the total eligible project costs in an environmental justice community, and whereas the Lewis Engle Park is located entirely in an environmental justice area, and the town is committed to focusing on improving the environment and addressing disproportionate adverse environmental impacts that may exist in this area of the town, and whereas the town council is hereby committed to using municipal funds and in-kind services as a local match in accordance with the requirements of New York State Environmental Conservation Law, Section 54-1101, and New York State Executive Law, Section 42-918, for an amount up to 15% of the total project cost or 25% of the total project cost should the New York State Department of State not deem the project to benefit and serve the environmental justice area population. And now therefore be it resolved that by the Town of Ossining Town Board that the town shall hereby apply to the Department of State for the Local Waterfront Revitalization Program grant funds, and be it further resolved that the supervisor is hereby authorized and designated as the representative and to act as such in a connection with the application to provide additional information as may be required, including all understandings and insurances contained in the application, and further resolved that the supervisor is hereby authorized and directed to execute any contract and or agreement with the New York State Department of State upon grant award in connection with the application, and her designee is further authorized to request funds from the New York State Department of State pursuant to said contract and or agreement, and be it further resolved to the extent all or any actions hereby authorized have been executed and or performed by the supervisor are all hereby ratified and confirmed, and this resolution take effect.
Do I have a motion?
Second.
So this Friday is the deadline for grant applications to New York State under the consolidated funding application. And the next three resolutions approve the three applications we plan on submitting or participating in. This first resolution relates to the development of an LWRP, or Local Waterfront Revitalization Plan, for the town of Ossining, which will be a strategic choice because having a plan in place will help us with seeking grant funding in the future. Do I have a motion? Oh, I already did that. Sorry. Is there any discussion? Anything else that you would like to add, Ray Cavarelli? Okay. All those in favor? Aye. Opposed?
Resolution authorizing participation in New York State Climate Smart Communities Grant and provision of local match. Whereas the Town Board of the Town of Austining hereby pledges to participate in the Climate Action Planning Institute Westchester County project that will be submitted as a grant proposal to the New York State Climate Smart Communities Grant Program by Westchester County as lead applicant. And whereas the Town of Austining hereby pledges to participate in this Climate Action Planning Leadership Program in partnership with the Hudson Valley Regional Council and ICLEI Local Governments for Sustainability. And whereas the Town of Austining certifies that it has identified and secured a minimum of $11,007 in matching funds from donated professional services from the town staff and volunteer time from Green Austining / Climate Smart Communities Task Force and Town of Austining Environmental Advisory Committee as contribution to the Climate Action Planning Institute Westchester County project pursuant to the requirements of Environmental Conservation Law Article 54 Title 15. The balance of the match needed to meet the New York State DEC Climate Smart Communities grant requirement of 50% for this project will be contributed by Westchester County and other participating Westchester County municipalities. And now therefore be it resolved that the Town Board of the Town of Austining hereby authorizes the supervisor to act on its behalf for submittal of a letter of commitment for matching funds, provision, and participation in Westchester County's Climate Action Planning Institute Westchester County application to the Consolidated Funding application.
Do I have a motion?
Second.
So we were approached by the Hudson Valley Regional Council and Westchester County to participate in a project to complete a greenhouse gas inventory and climate action plan as part of a collaborative team of volunteers and municipal staff from various municipalities in Westchester. We have a current climate action plan based on data from over 15 years ago, so it is a great time to jump on this project, especially as the state has set goals specifically to reducing carbon emissions by 2050. And so this is a good time for us to work together with some of our neighbors on this important initiative. The Village of Austining has also joined, so collectively we are contributing a match of $22,000, $22,014 comprised of in-kind services. So this is not a cash outlay from town and village engineering staff, supervisor's office staff, and volunteers from Green Austining Environmental Advisory Committees, which also we have the ability to utilize as matching funds. We expect to gain so much from this experience, and we look forward to getting started. And just to clarify, much of the time, the way that we achieve matches is a combination, sometimes of cash, but in this case not, and also of in-kind services that we are able to provide and attach a dollar amount to. So sometimes we do put forth some cash, and in this case it's 100% in-kind services. All those in favor? Aye. Anybody opposed?
Non-agricultural, non-point source planning grant program, beach restoration, Lewis Angle Park. Whereas the Town of Austining owns parkland at Westerly Road, Lewis Angle Park, and whereas Lewis Angle Park has many park amenities available to the community, including an access point to the Hudson River at the beach, and whereas swimming has not been allowed at the Lewis Angle Park beach for many years, and there's community interest in reopening the beach to swimming, requiring planning and parks improvements to address issues related to water quality, rising sea levels, and increased flooding, and restoration of the beach. And whereas funding is available through the New York State Department of Environmental Conservation Division of Water's non-agricultural, non-point source planning grant program to fund beach restoration planning projects under the consolidated funding application. Now therefore be it resolved that the Town Board of the Town of Austining authorizes the submission of a grant application to the non-agricultural, non-point source planning grant program under the consolidated funding application to complete a feasibility study and beach sanitary survey at the Lewis Angle Park Beach. And be it further resolved that the Town Board of the Town of Austining commits matching funds in the form of cash match as required by the non-agricultural, non-point source planning grant program.
Do I have a motion?
Second.
So our last grant application is to the New York State DEC's Division of Water for planning funds to complete a beach sanitary survey and feasibility study for the restoration of the beach at Lewis Angle Park. This type of planning will lay the groundwork for hopefully reopening the beach to swimming in the near future. As many of you know, the parks are part of our infrastructure. and are certainly one of our most used assets in the town. Many people utilize our parks, and our beachfront, waterfront, Lewis Angle Park is one that gets the most use. It is with that we continue to look for opportunities to do a better job at providing use of these facilities to our public. And we have been trying to get some grant money to leverage our investment in our infrastructure improvements to open the beach for a number of years. We've gotten advice as in the last few years when we on certain grant streams haven't been as successful for us. So we continue to look for ones that we believe will be more successful, and we believe that there might be an opportunity in this one to do so. For many years, we've been asked, before I started as town supervisor, to consider reopening the beach, but we need to do so in a way that is thoughtful and considerate, and make sure that the beach is attractive and useful and safe for our residents. And to do so, we believe that we need to plan appropriately. So with that, we will hopefully be more successful this time around with the DEC grant. And that's again all part of the consolidated funding application through the state's Mid-Hudson Region's Economic Development Council that we're applying for. That's deadline this Friday. Any questions? Discussion? Further additions? My comments? Else? Okay. All those in favor? Aye. Opposed?
A resolution in support of U.S. Coast Guard appropriations to bill to put a temporary ban on the establishment of anchorages along the Hudson River, whereas many cities, towns, and villages along the Hudson River in New York, from Yonkers to Albany, have expressed concerns about the U.S. Coast Guard's ongoing review of requests to establish a number of permanent anchorages along the Hudson River, and whereas the U.S. Coast Guard, in order to have a formal process to review these proposals with representatives of industry, of commerce, and government, establish a ports and waterways safety assessment PASA process, and whereas as an ongoing review of that process, the Hudson River Safety Navigation Operations Committee, which is an offshoot of the PASA process, has been reviewing related Coast Guard activities, and whereas the Hudson River Safety Navigation Operations Committee circulated information with regard to the U.S. Coast Guard's appropriations bill in Congress, noting that Section 420 includes a temporary blanket prohibition on the establishment of all anchorages in the Hudson River from Yonkers north to Kingston, and whereas while the provisions of this bill do not mean that in the event of an emergency, a tug or commercial vessel cannot ask for an emergency anchor, but basically prohibits the Coast Guard from establishing any formal designated anchorages areas within this area, and would establish a temporary blanket prohibition of all formally designated anchorage areas in the Hudson River from Yonkers north to Kingston. Now therefore be it resolved that the town board that the town of Ossining does hereby express its support for the U.S. Coast Guard appropriations bill in Congress, noting that Section 420 includes a temporary blanket prohibition on the establishment of all anchorages in the Hudson River from Yonkers north to Kingston, so that the U.S. Coast Guard, the Hudson River Safety Navigation Operations Committee, and all involved and affected parties may work cooperatively and have a thorough and methodical process for the formal establishment of anchorages on the Hudson River between Yonkers and Kingston, New York.
Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Second.
So as all of you know, we've been talking about the issue of anchorages along the Hudson River in areas that are utilized for tourism as well as just public recreation. And our concern is, has been, as a group of Hudson River communities and with guidance from the historic Hudson River towns, Jerry Fiala, who has been part of the Hudson River Safety Navigation Operations Committee. He's been asked to sit on that committee as a representative of all of the towns up and down the Hudson. We've been looking at this area with concern. The Coast Guard had proposed this finding a solution to anchorages needed, and many of our communities felt like this was not going to be something that would benefit our communities up and down the Hudson. So we want to make sure that that whatever anchorages do get established are done so thoughtfully and carefully. And this temporary ban is something that we believe, or blanket prohibition on establishing anchorages between Yonkers and Kingston, is something that we believe is a good thing. And again, not precluding the fact that if for emergency purposes, a boat or barge did need to anchor, then they would be able to do so in those areas. So we're hoping to send a message to the committee that this is how historic Hudson River towns feel, and many of the communities that are part of that organization are adopting resolutions in the next couple of weeks or so, so that we can send that to the committee. Other questions? Question? All those in favor? Aye. Any opposed?
Okay, a resolution in the matter of the increase and improvement of the facilities of the Consolidated Sewer District in the town of Ossining, Westchester County, New York. Whereas the town board of the town of Ossining, Westchester County, New York has under consideration the increase and improvement of the facilities of the Consolidated Sewer District in the town of Ossining, Westchester County, New York, consisting of the purchase of generators for lift stations, including costs incidental thereto, at a maximum estimated cost of $100,000. And whereas at a meeting of said town board duly called and held on July 9th, 2019, an order was duly adopted by it and entered into the minutes specifying the said town board would meet to consider the increase and improvement of the facilities of the Consolidated Sewer District in said town at a maximum estimated cost of $100,000, and to hear all persons interested in the subject thereof concerning the same at 8688 Spring Street in Ossining, New York, in said town on July 23rd, 2019 at 7:52 p.m. prevailing time, and whereas said order duly certified by the town clerk was duly published and posted as required by law, and whereas a public hearing was duly held at the time and place set forth in said notice, at which all persons desiring to be heard were duly heard, now therefore be it ordered by the town board of the town of Ossining, Westchester County, New York, as follows. Section 1. Upon the evidence given at the aforesaid public hearing, it is hereby found and determined that it is in the public interest to make the improvement to increase and improve the facilities of Consolidated Sewer District in the town of Ossining, Westchester County, New York, consisting of the purchase of generators for lift stations, including costs incidental thereto, at a maximum estimated cost of $100,000. And Section 2, this order shall take effect immediately.
Do I have a motion?
Second.
Mr. Warren, would you like to comment any further on these two resolutions, or do you think that you already said everything? Okay.
This is a roll call vote.
Okay, thank you.
Councilmember Meyer?
Aye.
Councilmember Shaw?
Aye.
Councilmember Wiltshire?
Aye.
Councilmember Feldman?
Aye.
Supervisor Leffenberg?
Hi.
A resolution authorizing the issuance of $100,000 serial bonds of the town of Ossining, Westchester County, New York, to pay the cost of the increase and improvement of the facilities of the Consolidated Sewer District in the town of Ossining, Westchester County, New York. Whereas pursuant to the provisions heretofore duly had and taken in accordance with the provisions of Section 202B of the town law, and more particularly in order dated July 23rd, 2019, said town board has determined it to be in the public interest to increase and improve the facilities of Consolidated Sewer District in the town of Ossining, Westchester County, New York, at a maximum estimated cost of $100,000. And whereas it is now desired to provide funding therefore, now therefore be it resolved by the town board of the town of Ossining, Westchester County, New York, as follows. Section 1, for the class of objects or purposes of paying the cost of the increase and improvement of the facilities of Consolidated Sewer District in the town of Ossining, Westchester County, New York, consisting of the purchase of generators for lift stations, including costs incidental thereto, at a maximum estimated cost of $100,000, there are hereby authorized to be issued $100,000 serial bonds of said town pursuant to the provisions of the local finance law. Section 2, it is hereby determined that the maximum estimated cost of the aforesaid class of objects or purposes is $100,000, and that the plan for the financing thereof is by the issuance of the $100,000 serial bonds of said town authorized to be issued pursuant to this bond resolution. Section 3, it is hereby determined that the period of probable usefulness of the aforesaid objects or purposes is 30 years pursuant to subdivision 4 of paragraph A of section 11 of the local finance law. It is hereby further determined that the maximum maturity of the serial bonds herein authorized will exceed 5 years. Section 4, subject to the provisions of the local finance law, the power to authorize the issuance of and to sell bond anticipation notes in anticipation of the issuance and sale of the serial bonds herein authorized, including renewals of such notes, is hereby delegated to the supervisor, the chief fiscal officer. Such notes shall be of such terms, forms, and contents, and shall be sold in such manner as may be prescribed by said supervisor, consistent with the provisions of the local finance law. Section 5, the faith and credit of said town of Ossining, Westchester County, New York, are hereby irrevocably pledged to the payment of the principal of and interest on such obligations as the same respectively become due and payable. An annual appropriation shall be made in each year sufficient to pay the principal of and interest on such obligations becoming due and payable in such year. To the extent not paid from other sources, there shall be annually assessed upon all the taxable real property within said consolidated sewer district in the amounts and in the manner provided by law, an amount sufficient to pay the principal and interest on said bonds as they become due, but if not paid from such source, all the taxable real property in said town shall be subject to the levy of an ad valorem taxes sufficient to pay the principal of and interest on said bonds as the same shall become due. Section 6, such bonds shall be in fully registered form and shall be signed in the name of the town of Ossining, New York, Town of Ossining, Westchester County, New York, by the manual or facsimile signature of the supervisor, and a facsimile of its corporate seal shall be imprinted or impressed thereon and may be attested by the manual or facsimile signature of the town clerk. Section 7, the powers and duties of advertising such bonds for sale, conducting the sale, and awarding the bonds are hereby delegated to the supervisor, who shall advertise such bonds for sale, conduct the sale, and award the bonds in such manner as he or she shall deem best for the interests of the town. Section 8, all other matters except as provided herein relating to such bonds, including determining whether to issue such bonds, having substantially level or declining debt service, and all manners related thereto, prescribing whether manual or facsimile signatures shall appear on said bonds, prescribing the method for the recording of ownership of said bonds, appointing the fiscal agent or agents for said bonds, providing for the printing and delivery of said bonds, and if said bonds are to be executed in the name of the town by the facsimile signature of its supervisor, providing for the manual counter signature of a fiscal agent or of a designated official of the town, the date, denominations, maturities, and interest payments, dates, place or places of payment, and also including the consolidation with other issues shall be determined by the supervisor. Section 9, the validity of such bonds and bond anticipation notes may be contested only if 1, such obligations are authorized for an object or purpose for which said town is not authorized to expend money, or 2, the provisions of law which should be complied with at the date of publication of this resolution are not substantially complied with, and an action, suit, or proceeding contesting such validity is commenced within 20 days after the date of such publication. Or 3, such obligations are authorized in violation of the provisions of the Constitution. Section 10, this resolution shall constitute a statement of an official intent for purposes of Treasury Regulations, sections 1.150-2. Other than as specified in this resolution, no monies are or are reasonably expected to be reserved, allocated on a long-term basis, or otherwise set aside with respect to the permanent funding of the object or purpose described herein. Section 11, this resolution takes effect immediately, shall be published in the summary, the official newspaper of the town, together with a notice of the town clerk, in substantially the form provided in Section 81 of the local finance law.
Do I have a motion?
Good job.
Okay, could you just repeat that? No. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Okay, and sorry, second. Okay, thank you. So first, I just want to thank Victoria Caffarelli from my office for doing such a good job reading all of that legalese. That was quite impressive. And I did neglect to thank her a couple resolutions back for all of her hard work on the grants that we're submitting this Friday, which has been tremendous, and she's a tremendous asset to the town. So thank you for that. And with that, I ask a discussion. Any questions on this resolution? Hearing none. All those in favor? Aye. Any opposed?
It's a roll call
Oh,
vote.
sorry, roll call.
Yeah. Councilmember Meyer. Councilmember Shaw.
Aye.
Councilmember Wiltshire.
Aye.
Councilmember Feldman.
Aye.
Supervisor Levenberg.
Aye.
Okay.
Surprise.
Permission to sell alcohol at Town of Austining Summer Concert Series Brimstone Hill Vineyard. Resolved that the Brimstone Hill Vineyard is hereby authorized to operate a wine tasting during the Summer Concert Series event held on July 26th at the Lewis Angle Waterfront Park in the Town of Austining and serve for consumption by persons over 21 years of age, Brimstone Hill Vineyard wine. And be it further resolved that the Brimstone Hill Vineyard will also obtain all necessary permits, including an event permit and/or marketing license from the New York State Liquor Authority, and will provide proof of insurance and the letter of indemnity to the town in a form acceptable to council to the town.
So I'd like to make a friendly amendment before I take a motion for this, which would change the title of this from permission to sell alcohol to permission to serve alcohol, because I believe that they may also be able to sell and or vend closed containers that are associated with the tasting. Come on in and maybe we can answer any questions you have. Sorry, we have some folks coming in the back. If you have any questions, maybe somebody in the back could help you out. Mr. Gonzalez, any chance you could, those folks need some help? Thank you. With that friendly amendment, do I have a motion?
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed?
Okay. Resolution calling for public hearing on local law determined of 2019 amendments to Chapter 180 of the Town Code entitled Taxation to implement the Solar Energy System Pilot Law of the Town of Austining, New York. Whereas New York Real Property Tax Law, Section 487, provides for an exemption of the value of a solar panel system from local property taxes, the intention of which is the state's efforts to meet its clean energy goals by providing economic incentives for solar systems. And whereas Real Property Tax Law, Section 487, also allows taxing jurisdictions to opt out of the tax exemption, making the added value of the solar panel system fully taxable. Or alternatively, if the taxing jurisdiction does not opt out of the exemption, the taxing jurisdiction can require a solar developer to pay an annual fee or payment in lieu of taxes as a replacement for the taxes it would have otherwise collected, so long as the pilot does not exceed what the taxes would have been without the exemption. And whereas recognizing that a balance is needed to encourage clean energy within the town while still ensuring the property owner pays its fair share of taxes, the town board desires to adopt a local law to implement a formulaic jurisdiction-wide pilot agreement process with solar developers and property owners, and now therefore be it resolved. The Town Board of the Town of Austining hereby calls for a public hearing to be held on Tuesday, August 6, 2018 at the Austining Municipal Building, first floor conference room located at 16 Groton Avenue, Austining, New York, 10562, in the manner of a local law amendments to Chapter 180 of the Town Code entitled Taxation to implement the Solar Energy System Pilot Law of the Town of Austining, New York.
Do I have a motion?
Second.
So we have been recently talked about the solar pilot at a work session, and we anticipate that there might be some upcoming proposals before the planning board, and we'd like to have something in place so that we would have the ability to collect in lieu of taxes. That would less of a deterrent than it would be incentive for solar developers to find good spaces in Austining that maybe where they may be able to offer community solar, for example, in already cleared spaces as per our local solar code which is our goal. And to do that and have something in place soon, we are calling for this public hearing, and hopefully we will get some input. All those in favor? Aye. Opposed?
No correspondence to be received and filed, but there are monthly reports. So resolved that the Town Board of the Town of Austining hereby accepts the following monthly reports for the month of June 2019. Dale Cemetery and Town Highway Department.
Do I have a motion? All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? So with that, we would welcome visitor recognition. Mr. Hanley from Senator Carlucci.
Good evening, everyone. Just a quick announcement. The Senator's office, the staff there, we sent comments to the New York Metropolitan Transportation Council asking that they add improving Route 9A and appropriation funds to conduct a study on easing traffic congestion at the intersection of Route 133 and Route 9 in the village of Ossining to their 5-year transportation improvement project. So that was a conversation that I and a colleague had earlier today. The village of Briarcliff sent their request to the Department of Transportation. I think it was last week or the week before. I have reached out to the Department of Transportation. I have not heard back from them regarding that separately, but with regards to this, we did make that recommendation. My colleague in the Rockland office did that. So, but yeah, just the update.
Wonderful. Well, thank you. That's really good to hear. And we are also hopeful that through the New York Metropolitan Transportation Council, they're going to be considering further studies for safety for pedestrian and bicycle safety access along 133 from the village of Ossining all the way over to the North County Trailway, the Empire State Trail, which we are hopeful will make the road safer for everybody. So with that, there's no additional visitor recognition. I would ask for a motion to enter into executive session for personnel and advice of counsel.
So moved.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you so much, everyone, for joining us this evening. Next week is a fifth Tuesday, and we will not be meeting unless we require a very short special meeting to conduct urgent business of the board. In which case, we will see you at 16 Croton Avenue on Tuesday, August 6th at 7:30 p.m. for a combined legislative meeting and work session. I would like to close this meeting in memory of Barbara Bates, who learned of passing recently and was a receiver of taxes in the town for many years. We know that so many people interacted with her and appreciated all that she had to offer to our community in her role as a public servant. And we are so sorry for her loss, and again, close this meeting in her memory. Have a great week and stay cool.